My parents tried to force me to apologize to my sister, but I had a different plan. I'm not saying sorry for something she did, I say, and my voice comes out thinner than I want, but it's steady. My mother's dining room smells like burnt garlic bread and lemon cleaner, and my dad is blocking the doorway with his arms folded, like I might try to sprint past him and dive through the window. My sister Claire is sitting at the table with her hands folded in front of her like a kid at confession, mascara smudged, a tiny red indentation on her wrist where her bracelet was too tight. "Maya, you are being selfish," my mom says, each word separate and sharp. "You can't honestly be okay with your sister having a criminal record because of you." I let out this disbelieving half-laugh that sounds a little hysterical even to me. "Because of me?" I repeat, splaying my fingers on the edge of the table so I don't clench them into fists. The cheap vinyl tablecloth wrinkles under my palms. Claire finally looks up, eyes glossy. "I said I was sorry," she whispers. "I was in a bad place. I just needed help." My dad gestures toward her like a lawyer presenting Exhibit A. "She owned up to it, May. She's family. You don't take family to the police. You sit down, you talk, you work it out. You fix it." His voice rises on the last word. "Now you are going to apologize to your sister for overreacting, and we're going to patch this up. You're not leaving until we do." It was a Thursday night when the first debt collector knocked on my apartment door. That's when the fuse really got lit, even if I didn't know where it led yet. I'd worked a late shift, my feet were killing me, and I was halfway through microwaving leftover pasta when someone hammered on the door like the building was on fire. I remember thinking it was my neighbor about the noise from upstairs again. Instead, I opened the door to a man in a cheap suit holding a clipboard and a synthetic smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Evening, are you Ms. Maya Patel?" he asked. I nodded automatically, stomach dropping, even though I had no idea why. He showed me an ID badge and started reading something about outstanding account balance of 43 and 27.19 with some company name I'd never heard of. I laughed at first because mistakes happen, right? "I don't have anything with them," I said, scratching at a bit of peeling paint on the doorframe. "You've got the wrong person." He tilted the clipboard so I could see. My name, my address, my date of birth. My stomach flipped. Those next few minutes felt like a slow-motion car crash. He explained that the account had been opened 6 months earlier, that multiple payments had been missed, that my file had been passed to collections. I kept saying, "No, no, no," shaking my head so hard my ponytail flicked my neck. He eventually left me with a thick envelope and the weird, half-pitying, half-annoyed look of someone who does this all the time. My pasta went cold in the microwave while I sat on the couch, hands shaking, flipping through pages that all had my details on them in bold at the top. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my tiny kitchen table with my laptop open, logging into every bank account, every credit report website I could think of. More debts. Not just one account. 3. A store card I'd never used. A buy now, pay later thing I'd never signed up for. My credit score, which I'd been carefully building since my first paycheck at 19, had tanked. I felt like someone had broken into my house and rearranged my furniture while I was asleep. Except the furniture was my life. The thing about growing up with Claire is that someone taking something of mine without asking wasn't exactly new. She's 2 years older, and it's always been like this unspoken rule that what's mine is hers, but what's hers is hers. When we were kids, it was my clothes, my makeup, the special pen I bought with my own allowance. In high school, it was my homework for reference. In uni, it was my spare bed, my Netflix, my Uber account. My parents always brushed it off. "She admires you," my mom would say. "She's just borrowing. You know what she's like." What she's like? When our parents talk about Claire, they always start with the word talented. Claire is talented and creative and free-spirited. When they talk about me, they use words like reliable and sensible, and the one we don't have to worry about. It sounds like a compliment until you realize it means you're the one they'll lean on while the other one sets her life on fire, and everyone gathers around with hoses and hugs. We used to be close, though, in our own messy way. We shared a room until she moved out at 22. We'd lie in the dark and whisper secrets, complain about our parents, dream about traveling. I defended her in high school when she skipped classes or came home drunk. I covered for her when she borrowed Dad's car without asking. I was always the one making excuses. She's just under pressure. She's just finding herself. She'll figure it out. So when my laptop screen showed me debt after debt in my name, the first person who popped into my head wasn't some stranger with a stolen wallet. It was Claire, sitting on my couch 6 months earlier, crying into a mug of tea about how behind she was on rent because freelancing is hard, and I'm just waiting on a couple of invoices. She'd stayed with me for 2 weeks, just while I get back on my feet, using my shower, my Wi-Fi, my spare keys. I remember her rummaging in my desk drawer once for a charger. I remember joking, "Don't steal my identity while you're in there." And her laughing, tossing her hair. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. I tried to convince myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe my info got hacked. Maybe the company made a mistake. But when I called the number on the letter and asked for the application details, the woman on the phone read out, "Phone number ending in 3921. That was Claire's number. The email address on the file was hers with one extra number. My ears started ringing. The next time I saw Claire, it was at our parents' house for Sunday dinner. Like always. Mom had made lamb curry, and Dad was complaining about the traffic. And Claire breezed in 10 minutes late with her sunglasses on top of her head and a paper bag of bakery brownies she'd probably paid for with someone else's money. I watched her hug my mom, kiss my dad on the cheek, flop into a chair, my heart pounding so hard it felt like I'd swallowed a drum. I'd printed out some of the documents and shoved them in my bag. They felt heavy against my hip. We made it through grace and half the meal before my composure cracked. Claire was halfway through a story about a client from hell when the words spilled out of me. "Did you open a credit account in my name?" I said, voice way too loud for the small dining room. Everyone froze. Claire blinked, fork halfway to her mouth. "What?" she said, laughing like I'd told a weird joke. My mom's eyes snapped to mine. "Maya, what are you talking about?" she asked, a warning edge in her tone. My hands were shaking as I pulled the papers from my bag and slid them across the table. "This," I said. "I've got debt collectors at my door. Accounts I never opened. With my name and details, but your number and email." The silence that followed was nothing like the comfortable family quiet we sometimes had. It was sharp and brittle. Claire's eyes flickered over the pages. For a second, something like recognition passed over her face before she slapped on a mask of indignation. "This is insane," she said, voice going high. "Anyone could put my number down. Why are you accusing me?" "Because you had my wallet. Because you had my keys. Because you stayed alone in my apartment," I shot back. My chest felt tight. "Because you've been talking about being broke for months and somehow you still show up with new shoes every time I see you." My mom reached for the papers with trembling hands. "There has to be some mistake," she said. "Your sister would never do something like that." My dad grunted, frowning at the documents but not really reading them. Claire pushed her chair back so it scraped loudly. "I can't believe you'd think I'm capable of that," she said, eyes shining. "You're seriously sick, Maya. Maybe you should talk to someone." Gaslighting. That's the word my friend Lily used later when I told her the story. In the moment, though, all I felt was this nauseating swirl of guilt and doubt. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I had messed up somehow. Maybe this was one of those situations where I could have handled it more privately. That's what my mom said later, when she called me after dinner and whispered, "You embarrassed her in front of us, you know that? You could have spoken to her alone." I tried. That's the part my parents like to skip over when they tell the story. I texted Claire. I called. I asked her to meet me for coffee. When she finally agreed and sat across from me in a noisy cafe, she cracked after 10 minutes of denial. "Fine," she hissed, fingers twisting her napkin. "I opened one account, okay? I was going to pay it off before you ever knew. I just needed some breathing room." One account turned into 3 when I pushed. I was desperate. She kept saying, "You don't understand how stressful it is. I thought you'd be supportive. You're always going on about how we're family." My coffee had gone cold. I remember staring at the tiny bubble of milk clinging to the rim of my cup while my heart felt like it was beating in my throat. "You stole my identity," I said quietly. "You trashed my credit. This could stop me from getting a car, a house, anything. Do you get that?" Claire shrugged, eyes filling with tears that looked more angry than sad. "I said I'll fix it," she insisted. "I'll start paying it off. You'll be fine. They don't even check half that stuff." Over the next few weeks, nothing got fixed. The calls got worse. Letters piled up. Every time I called one of the companies and explained that the accounts were fraudulent, they asked if I'd filed a police report. And every time I hesitated, Because filing a report meant putting my sister's name on something official. It meant not just having a fight, but doing something that couldn't be smoothed over with a teary family dinner and a group hug. My parents, when I told them what the companies were suggesting, reacted like I'd proposed having Claire executed. Absolutely not, my dad said, slamming his hand on the table so hard the salt shaker toppled. We do not involve police in family business. She said she'll sort it out. Give her time. My mother chimed in with, she's been under so much pressure. You know how sensitive she is. We have to support her right now, not punish her. Meanwhile, my rent was due. My car insurance notice came with a little note about adverse changes to my credit report. I couldn't sleep without my chest tightening every time I thought about the number on that letter. Fourth are you turned 27, 19 years and counting. I started grinding my teeth in my sleep. I snapped at customers at work. I felt like I was walking around with a ticking bomb strapped to me that only I could hear. The breaking point came when I got a letter saying one of the debts had been escalated to possible legal action. It used words like court and judgment and wage garnishment. I read it 3 times, sitting on the edge of my bed while my hands tingled and my ears rang. I thought about all the times I'd covered for Claire, all the times I'd been the responsible one, Tam, who smoothed things over. And I thought about my parents sitting in their paid-off house, telling me to be patient while their golden child treated my life like a credit card. That night, I went online and filled out the fraud report forms. I typed out exactly what had happened. The accounts, the timeline, my relationship to the person who had my details. When the form asked, "Do you want to press charges?" I stared at the blinking cursor for a long time. Then I ticked, yes. Filing the police report felt like stepping off a cliff in the dark. Part of me was sure I'd regret it. Another part of me felt this strange, fierce relief, like I'd finally stopped trying to hold up a collapsing building with my bare hands. They interviewed me at the station a week later. The officer was professional, detached. He asked how my sister accessed my documents. He asked if I had texts or emails. I handed over copies of everything, including a message where Claire had written, "I swear to God I'll fix it. Please don't ruin my life over a couple of stupid accounts." His pen paused over that one. When Claire got contacted, all hell broke loose. My mother called me sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "The police showed up at the house," she wailed. "Your sister is hysterical. How could you do this? How could you send them after her?" My dad got on the phone next, and his voice was cold in a way I've never heard before. "You've gone too far, Maya," he said. "You don't do this to your own blood." "I didn't do this," I said quietly. "She did, when she opened those accounts." But they didn't want to hear it. In their version, I'd taken a family problem and turned it into a public spectacle. Which brings us back to their dining room and my dad blocking the doorway and my mother demanding I apologize. Claire had been formally charged with identity fraud a few days earlier. She might avoid jail, but it's still serious. My parents called this meeting under the guise of talking things through. I'd almost canceled, then decided to go. Not because I was planning to apologize, because I had my own plan. What I hadn't told them yet was that I wasn't just relying on the police to fix my problems. I'd also spoken to a consumer law center. They'd helped me start the process to get the fraudulent accounts removed from my record. They'd also advised me to keep clear records of any attempts at intimidation or coercion from my family about dropping the charges. So before I knocked on my parents' door that night, I'd opened a recording app on my phone and slipped it into my pocket. Now, as my dad says, "You're not leaving until we sort this." I shift my weight, feeling the hard rectangle of my phone against my thigh. My heart is pounding, not because I'm scared of them physically, but because this is so deeply ingrained. The idea that I don't leave the table until my parents say the conversation is over. "You can't keep me here," I say, trying to keep my tone level. "I'm not a kid anymore." "You are acting like one," my mom snaps. "An apology is the least you can do after what you've done to your sister. She's been in tears for days. She might not get certain jobs now. She's ashamed to show her face at church. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" Something in me goes very, very still. "Yes," I say. "I do. It feels like getting letters from debt collectors. It feels like being too scared to apply for a car loan because your credit is trashed. It feels like lying awake wondering how you're going to dig out of a hole someone else threw you in." Claire sniffles loudly. "I said I was sorry," she repeats. You didn't have to go to the police. You've ruined my life over money. It's not about the money, I say, my voice suddenly thick. It's about the fact that you saw my life as collateral damage. And Mom, Dad, you backed her. You told me to be quiet, to wait, to protect her again. I swallow hard. I'm done doing that. My dad steps closer, jaw tight. What do you want then? He demands. Revenge? For her to sit in a cell? For us to what, disown her? We're trying to keep this family together and you're tearing it apart. Here's the thing. For weeks, I'd tried to come up with some dramatic speech that would make them all suddenly see my side. Some perfect combination of words that would unlock understanding and regret in their faces. But the more I turned it over in my mind, the more I realized there was no magic phrase. They didn't want to understand. They wanted things to go back to a version of normal where I carried the weight and they called it keeping the peace. So my plan wasn't about changing them. It was about changing my position in the story. I don't want revenge, I say quietly. I want accountability. I want my name cleared. I want you to stop pretending this is a misunderstanding I created instead of a crime she committed. I look at Claire. I'm not dropping the charges. That's not on the table. My mother lets out a sharp, incredulous laugh, like I've told her I plan to move to the moon. You will, she says. You'll calm down. We'll sort it out. These things can be retracted. She looks at my dad. Tell her. He nods, eyes hard. You're going to call whoever you need to call and say you're not proceeding. He orders. We'll help you pay off what's left, but you will not drag this family name through the mud any further. That's not how it works, I say, shaking my head. It's not just up to me anymore. And even if it was, I'm not doing that. I already told the officer I'm cooperating fully. My dad's face goes red. After everything we've done for you, he starts. After all the times we've been there, for her, I cut in, softer than it feels in my chest. You've been there for her, at my expense. When I got my first job out of uni, you barely said anything. When Claire landed a 3-month contract, you threw a party. When she totaled your car, you paid for it. When I needed help with a bond, you said I should learn to be independent. When she cried about rent, you gave her money. When she stole from me, you asked me to be understanding. My mom's eyes fill with tears. That's not fair, she whispers. We love you both. I believe you think you do, I say. But the way you show it hurts me. And I'm not sticking around to be the punching bag while you all pretend this is what a loving family looks like. My dad takes another step toward me, and something in his posture makes me think of all the times I flinched as a kid when his voice boomed down the hallway. My fingers twitch, wanting to reach for the doorknob, but I force myself to stand still. If you walk out that door without apologizing, he says, low and dangerous, don't bother coming back. For a second, the little kid inside me panics. No more Sunday dinners. No more Diwali at their place. No more shared jokes about relatives. It feels like cutting off a limb. Then I remember the way my mother's voice sounded when she said my sister's criminal record was because of you. I remember the letters, the sleepless nights, the way Claire rolled her eyes at the word fraud like it was a bad haircut. Okay, I say. My own voice surprises me. It's calm, quiet. If those are the conditions, then okay, I won't come back. My mother gasps like I slapped her. Maya, don't be ridiculous, she says swiftly. You don't mean that. He didn't mean that. We're all upset right now. Sit down. We'll talk this through. She's already trying to pull it back, to smooth it over, to tuck the edges of this conversation into something she can fold and file away. For the first time ever, I don't rush to make it easier. I think I mean it, I say. I'm not saying I'll never speak to you again. Maybe one day we can have a relationship that doesn't require me to set myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. But for now, I need distance. Real distance, not take a week off and come back when you're ready to apologize. I step around my dad. He doesn't move at first, like we're in some kind of standoff. Then he shifts just enough for me to slip past. My heart is beating so hard I can feel it in my fingertips, but my legs keep walking. I grab my bag from the hook by the door. My hand closes around my keys. Where are you going? Claire's voice cracks behind me. Home, I say, without turning around. To my actual home. The one that has my name on the lease and my name on the bills. The one I'm trying to protect. You're really going to throw away your family over a stupid mistake? She cries. I pause with my hand on the doorknob. No, I say. I'm walking away because you keep calling it a stupid mistake instead of something you chose to do. And because Mom and Dad keep asking me to make myself smaller so you don't have to feel bad. Then I open the door and step out into the cool night air. It smells like wet leaves and someone's laundry detergent from the next house over. My hands are shaking so badly I almost drop my keys. I make it into my car before the tears come. Hot and blurring everything. I rest my forehead on the steering wheel and let myself sob for a full minute. The sound loud in the small space. Eventually, the sobs turn into hiccups, then into silence. I take my phone out of my pocket, thumb trembling over the screen. The recording app shows a red bar and a timestamp. 0:47:09. I save the file and back it up to the cloud. Not because I'm planning to plaster it all over the internet, but because I want a record for myself. For my lawyer if things get nastier. For the version of me that will someday start to doubt her own memory. On the drive home, my phone buzzes nonstop in the cup holder. Calls from Mom. Texts from Dad. A handful of messages from Claire popping up on the lock screen, swinging between, please don't do this, and you're insane. So fast it makes me dizzy. I don't answer any of them. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and turn the music up just enough to drown out my thoughts. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, things have not magically gotten better. I still jump when the phone rings. I still wake up at 3 a.m., replaying my dad's words. I still have moments where I almost dial my mom just to hear her tell me what to do. Then I remember that what she'd tell me to do is apologize to the person who stole my identity. And the urge fades. The legal process is slow, but the consumer law people have been helpful. 2 of the fraudulent accounts have already been removed from my credit report. The debt collectors have stopped calling, at least for now. I still don't know what's going to happen to Claire. I heard through a cousin that she's telling people I framed her out of jealousy. My parents, apparently, are leaning hard on the we don't know what got into Maya narrative. But here's what my different plan really was. Not revenge, not public shaming. Just refusing to play my assigned role anymore. Refusing to be the sensible, self-sacrificing daughter who cleans up the mess and then apologizes for spilling a little while she mops. Refusing to let family be the magic word that erases my right to protect myself. I don't know if I'll ever have the kind of parents who look at both their daughters and see 2 whole people instead of a star and a safety net. I don't know if Claire will ever understand the difference between a mistake and a pattern. Maybe one day there'll be therapy, or tears, or some big reconciliation scene. Maybe there won't. For now, I'm paying my own bills, slowly rebuilding my credit, and going to trivia nights with friends who apologize when they mess up instead of expecting me to sweep it under the rug. I'm learning that no is a complete sentence, that I can hang up the phone, that I can block a number even if it shares my DNA. My parents tried to force me to apologize to my sister. Instead, I apologized to myself for all the years I didn't stand up for me. Then I made a different plan, and I walked out the door.